All right, so in this video, I want to talk about what is arguably one of the most important skills in all of dating, and that is flirting. Now, what is flirting? So flirting is what you get when you mix creating a man-to-woman frame with teasing. Because here's the thing, you've probably noticed, even among us guys, we'll tease each other, right? But that's not romantic, right? That's not sexual. It's when you mix the two. When you mix showing intent, having a man-to-woman frame in the interaction, when you mix that with teasing, then you get flirting. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to frame an interaction in a man-to-woman way, in a romantic way. So the first concept that I want to introduce you to is the concept of statements of attraction. And so this is the most simple and least sophisticated way of showing intent, of creating that man-to-woman frame. So for example, when you tell a girl, I thought you were cute, or I think you're cute, like if you say something like, I like your eyes, that's showing some intent. For me, sometimes I like to say things like, I like your energy. It's very feminine. So these things are pretty simple and not that sophisticated. So if you look at some dudes, right, their entire dating strategy is just, they'll just be like, hey, beautiful, good morning, beautiful, right? Not very sophisticated at all, but at least these dudes are showing some intent. Now, the worst thing that you could be in all of dating is that guy that literally shows no intent. That is the worst thing. Like the cringy dude who's like, hey, beautiful, good morning, beautiful. That dude is doing better. Now, ultimately, what you want to be is you want to be the guy that can show intent and frame things in a man-to-woman way, who does it in a more sophisticated way where you're not giving away all of your value, okay? When you're not showering a girl with validation, but you're still showing intent and showing her, hey, I want to date you. This is a man-to-woman thing. And so what are some examples of that? So an example of showing intent in a more sophisticated way is using things like push-pull, for example. Like, you're cute, but I think you're trouble. Or for example, you could say something like, so we're two attractive people. Should we get married and have 2.5 kids together? Okay? That is a bit more sophisticated. Or for example, something that I love to say, I wouldn't really call it sophisticated, but it's not the typical, nice guy giving heaps of validation with no kind of challenge. But, if I'll be talking about traveling with a girl, which I often do, I might be talking about a place I've went. She might be saying like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to go there. Or she might even say something like, oh, I'm jealous. Like, I want to go there. And I'll say something along the lines of, it's okay. I'll put you in my suitcase next time. Right? And I'll say it with that playful kind of expression. So with a statement like that, I'm showing some intent. I'm talking about like, obviously us doing together, which creates this kind of we frame, but I'm also kind of teasing her and challenging and giving a little bit of shit. And the joke could continue on. She might have a reaction like, oh, put me in a suitcase. I'll be like, yeah, it's all right. I'll poke some holes in it. And again, saying that with that playful kind of attitude. And this is really important because if you don't have that playfulness in your interactions, it's not gonna work. Flirting is about making a decision that I'm going to be playful in this interaction. I'm gonna enter that mode of flirting. Now, this is gonna sound like really bad, but when you've got a pet, now I'm not saying women are pets, okay? Don't take that out of context. But, let's say you have a pet, you have a puppy dog, something like that. When people have a pet, they go into a certain mode. They're making a decision of like, oh, I'm gonna like start talking to a puppy, and they start doing that like, random way that they talk to, puppies, like, oh, come here, like that shit, okay? Now, in the same way, if you talk to like a 4-year-old or something like that, or even like a 2-year-old, like a baby, like, you're not gonna talk to them the same way. Like, oh, hey there, buddy, how's it going? Like, yeah, high five, right? You start talking to them in a certain way. And so when you are flirting with women, you've gotta have that playfulness, you've gotta have that like cheekiness, an air of mischief. Going back to what I was talking about before, I've given you some examples of showing it in a more sophisticated way, like push-pull, stuff like that. Like, you're cute, but I think you're trouble. Or even disqualifying. She could talk about her star sign, something like that. You know, she could be like a Pisces, and then, you know, you could say something like, damn, you're a Pisces. Fuck, I don't know if we're gonna get along. And you say it with that playful kind of vibe, you're actually showing intent, because you're talking about like, you know, I don't know if this is gonna work out. I don't know if we'd be able to like date each other, okay? So you're showing intent while disqualifying and pushing her away. So again, that's a more sophisticated way of showing intent. One where you're not giving away your value quite as much. Now, here's some other examples of showing intent. I mean, ones that are less sophisticated. When she's really short, I might say something like, you know, I love how small you are. And now, if you think about these things and you think about how they frame an interaction. So if you say to a girl, like, I like your energy, it's very feminine. What frame are you kind of putting forward? You're putting forward the frame of like, you're feminine and I'm masculine. And that's gonna make her feel more feminine. That is if she's open to you and that she resonates with what you're saying. Like if you say, you know, I like your energy, you're very feminine, and internally she's like, yeah, I am very feminine. You're creating a dynamic where you're feminine, you're the woman, and I'm the man. Now you look at something like, I like how small you are, that has a similar effect because that makes her feel more feminine. It makes her feel, another word for it is submissive, and it frames the interaction in a particular way. So you want to think about that. All right, so let's get into talking about teasing. Now, before I go into teasing, I really want to reiterate, like, it's very important that you say these lines with a playful expression. So pay attention to how I deliver these lines and then try to emulate that yourself. All right, so let's get straight into it. So the easiest way to tease is what's called sarcastic agreeance or sarcastic non-agreeance. So an example of sarcastic agreeance is, you know, a girl could be saying like, yeah, I'm not like all the other girls. And then you say something like, ah, yeah, sure, right? With that playful kind of smirk. Or another example, you know, a girl could be saying like, oh yeah, I don't drink that much. Again, you can just say like, ah, yeah, sure. Now, sarcastic non-agreeance. So this can sometimes work the best when she's actually testing you. She could be saying something like, ah, you're just a fuckboy, aren't you? And then you can sarcastically not agree and be like, nah, I'm actually a virgin. You can literally do this with anything. You know, she could be trying to get you to qualify, which means explain your kind of value to her. And she could be asking you some bullshit like, are you 6 foot? And then, you know, you could say something like, nah, I'm like 4'2". Or she could ask you something like, you know, are you rich? And you could be like, nah, I'm like a peasant. And then you can even exaggerate it further than that. Like, yeah, I'm just like out here trying to find a sugar mummy so I can survive. Again, blowing it out of proportion. All right, so the next teasing concept that I want to talk about is the idea of playful stereotyping. So a really basic example of this is, let's say a girl could tell you like, yeah, I get my coffee at Starbucks. You could say something like, oh my God, you're such a white girl. And so you're playfully stereotyping her as the white girl, because there's this kind of meme about, you know, the typical white girl who listens to Taylor Swift, gets like pumpkin spice lattes at Starbucks, wears Ugg boots, and you say that with a playful expression like, oh my God, you're such a white girl, right? With a smirk. Another example is, yeah, I'm always on time for everything, whatever. And then you could be like, oh my God, you're such a goody two-shoes. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get along, right? That type of thing. Or if she says that, you know, she never drinks, she never, you know, she doesn't have any tattoos, you know, you can paint that picture of like, you're practically like a church girl, you know? Or, you know, even more intricate examples, you know, I've had interactions where like, you know, I was talking to a girl from a certain country, or like, I remember one interaction, like this girl was like from Berlin. Like, you know, say shit like what kind of techno are you into? Like the type that sounds like a washing machine like malfunctioning, or like, you know, shit like that. So like giving shit, but like playfully. There are literally like infinite ways of like coming up with these stereotypes and like giving shit if you're creative enough. Some other more simple examples, you know, the party girl, the brat, the hippie stoner girl. You get the point. All right, so one other concept I want to talk about is misinterpretation. This one can be great because it's a way of really showing wit and intelligence, and also showing that intent at the same time. So for example, you know, you could be like on a date or in an interaction, and she could notice that you haven't finished your drink yet. And you could say something like, oh yeah, you're trying to take advantage of me. You know, if you're at a bar or something like that, you might have this experience where girls are like, you know, you just trying to sleep with me or something like that. And again, you can kind of misinterpret that and be like, well, actually, you're gonna buy me a drink first. Or another perfect example, and this is more like over text, but if a girl just like love hearts your message, you can say something like, just a love heart, not even gonna ask me out. And there's a little bit of cockiness that comes with that at the same time. And it really frames you as being like the prize. All right, so the next technique I want to talk about is what's called exaggeration. So for example, she could say, yeah, I really don't like this city. And then, you know, you could say like, yeah, I don't really like it either. We should move to Mexico and like start a new life. And so again, you're taking that really basic context of like, okay, we're two people who don't like a city. And then you're exaggerating it. And you're also creating like a we frame out of this. You can also just like create something out of nothing as well. Like you could say something like, so we're two attractive people. We should get married and have like 2.5 kids. So again, you're taking that simple context, that baseline context of like, we're two people who are attractive, and then you're exaggerating it. Some other basic examples, you're talking to a girl and she's like, yeah, I like true crime documentaries. And then let's say you find out something else about her, like she's a Scorpio, something like that. You can make a list and you can say like, damn, so like Scorpio watches true crime documentaries. I'm a little bit concerned at this point. I think you're like low-key a serial killer, maybe. Yeah, like no harvesting my organs on the black market, all right? Again, blowing it out of proportion. All right, so the next one, I mean, I've already talked about this one, but I just want to reiterate, push-pull. So you're cute, but I think you're trouble. Or some other kind of push and pull. Like, I really like your vibe, but I'm still not sure if we'd fully get along. Or like, you know, some random example, let's say you find out for some reason that a girl likes Nickelback or some shit, you know, you can tease her about that and you can turn that into a push-pull. You could be like, you know, you're really cute, but like, I don't know if I can get past the fact that you listen to like Nickelback. So it's that whole idea of something positive mixed with something negative, but expressed in a playful way. All right, so one last concept. I know there's quite a few, but I wanted to talk about the idea of role playing. And I've talked about this a little bit, like, you know, saying things like, let's get married and move to Mexico. Let's have 2.5 kids, like role playing, doing something together, creating that we frame also. But there are like many ways to do this. For example, a girl could be talking about, you know, how times are really difficult economically or something like that. And then you can create a crazy hypothetical and be like, oh yeah, it's pretty fucked up. We should like rob a bank together. You know, you can be like the decoy and like, I'll go in there and like get the gold, you know? So you're creating like some kind of like ridiculous like role play scenario. Or, you know, another example, like let's say you're talking about music, you're joking around, shit like that. Say something like, you know, we should start a band. So, like I'll play drums and sing, and then you can just like tap the triangle every like 5 seconds. Someone else plays guitar, like you joke about that. Or like, you know, let's make a mixtape. You know, I'll be on the beat, you know, you can do the rhymes. So like, yeah, you're creating that like role play scenario, and that can be fun and it creates a we frame. All right, guys, so that's how to flirt. And what I would suggest to you, honestly, is the best way to start flirting is just to take some of these lines and to go and fucking do them. And then once you get that down pat, what's gonna happen is you're gonna start to come up with your own lines. Once you have it cemented how the concepts work and you get used to doing it, then you'll start to come up with your own. And that's the point that I want all you guys to get to. But the best way to do it is, yeah, just start off by taking these lines and notice how they feel for you, okay? If you say some of these lines and they don't really resonate, well, maybe that's not congruent with your personality. So then find another line, try that. But there is gonna be some level of discomfort or it not fully feeling, you know, natural for you yet, because you may not be used to it. But the more you do it, the more you start to get a hang of how to interject that kind of playful vibe into what you're saying, how to say it in the right way. It's also really good to practice this with other people and to get their objective feedback. And that's what I do, like in my weekly calls with my guys. I get them to role play these things. Because these are skills that you can learn, that you can practice, and that you can get better at. But the first step is just doing it, okay? If you don't do these things and say these lines, you'll never create that man to woman interaction and women will keep friend zoning you. So you've got to try at least 1 or 2 or 3 of these lines in an interaction and just get a feel for how they go and go from there. All right, guys, so that's how to flirt. Hope that's been useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.